welcome to our season premiere of Branding and the Beast, Season 2. We made it through a whole season and we are ready to go with an awesome guest and an awesome topic to talk about. My name is Alicia Disantis, founder of 38th and Kip Studio. No nonsense, just good sense. That's my new tagline. And my
Look at
wonderful
that.
co-host,
Shaun Bernstein of the Right Stuff Agency. I am still making your business sound as good as it looks.
he's still doing it, folks, after all these
I'm
years.
still at her. Still crazy after all these years. What can I tell?
Mm,
I'm coming up on 4 years, which is just mind blowing.
time is really flying. I still cannot believe it's 2023. And we're
It's
coming up on a
wild.
year of this podcast
That is
being
also
launched.
crazy. Things I just cannot comprehend.
Yeah. Uh, well, like I said a few moments ago, we have a really great topic today. We're talking about communications and interviewing. And I think it's a really, really fascinating topic. I mean, I think
So
all of our
excited.
topics are fascinating, but how quickly the pace of communications is changing within different demographics and different generations to interview people for a living has got to be such a wild ride because you honestly never know from day to day what's changing and what your guest is going to say.
It's I've done a lot of this, and I'm trained in this. Right, this is sort of my background. This was my old happy place, always my happy place. And yeah, people are the best. Words of advice that I ever got. Are the people like a lock and key, and once you kind of find out the combination to unlock somebody, it's amazing how much they'll open up. Everyone's different. Everyone's got a different combination. We're all unique little locks, but it's a real wild ride because you're right. You don't know what someone's going to come out with.
The thing that's fascinating to me and what I really want to talk to our guest about is how do you maintain a unique brand when essentially your brand revolves around your guest? And how do you walk that line between having them shine, but then also infusing your own personality into your interviews?
Hmm. That's interesting. I'm curious to see what he has to say because you look at the people who are really known for it, and some brand themselves as being super predictable and they have a certain format, and other people brand themselves as being totally in the background and they just kind of disappear into it and let the person roll. Their expertise is in making someone else comfortable enough to be themselves. So curious
Right.
to see our friend Mike's take on it all.
Yeah. And I think it's really timely because the power of the interview is not going away. People love to watch people get interviewed. And now with the rise in reels and short videos, it's really turned into these snippets that have almost become memes unto themselves, which is really fascinating. Like the hot ones. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
of Pedro Pascal's recent Hot Ones interview, where just the single clip, it's every reaction to Pedro Pascal eating a wing, and it's
Yeah,
just the
I
same
haven't seen the
clip.
episode yet.
Um,
It's on my list.
it's so interesting. And then if you
I promise
talk
by the
about
time this episode drops, I will watch that.
on the other end of it, I one of the things that's fascinated me is Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg being on the Olympics coverage from a
Hmm.
couple years ago and interviewing Olympians, and just that hilarious uh, dichotomy of them interviewing, and really it made for some of the best Olympic coverage I've ever seen. And they are very strong personalities, so they're on the opposite end of uh, having your own personal brand. I mean, Snoop Dogg is one of the strongest personal brands I can think of.
Well, and it's interesting, right? Because they're not trained, and so it's like when they give a celebrity a talk show. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because there really is, as I imagine Mike will talk about, there's a real finesse to doing it. You don't need, a master's in journalism, I don't think, although it's can be nice to have. But there is a real art of the interview. As I think about the book behind me called The Art of the Interview. And if you're not trained, in how to do that, pardon me, then the results are probably going to show for it.
Yeah. And it really extends into pretty much every facet of being a professional is knowing how to communicate, knowing how to ask questions, knowing how to receive information. And in a world where we are face to face, I'd say, in quotation marks, in a more digital environment, understanding the nuances of how to talk to someone when it's a screen and when it's a Zoom, and how that's evolved so rapidly over the course of just a few years.
Yeah, exactly. No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a challenge for sure. You don't have, so much of interviewing is in the nonverbal communication, right, in the body language, and really being able to sort of read someone, and you just don't have the benefit of that from the neck up. It's a lot tougher to do.
Exactly. And that's why I'm glad this is a video podcast and not a regular podcast, because I would feel so strange talking to someone I can't see.
It makes things different. It's all sort of different layers of the conversation. Similar to some of the points you just made. It's all different layers of the conversation. So the verbal is one layer, the physical is a layer, the environment is another layer. There's so much that comes timing. There's so much that comes together to make it a great chat.
Right on. Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and bring in our guest, Mike Lawson. He's the host of CUBroadcast, a national and exceedingly prolific interviewing uh, media platform. He has a podcast, all kinds of varieties of different media. He's been in the circuit for quite some time, and he's a really great guy. So let's bring him in. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. We have our incredible season premiere guest here, Mike Lawson of CUBroadcast. Thank you so much for being here, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Alicia. Yeah, thanks for having me on and being the premiere. I mean, I'm very honored, and I apologize for my disheveled look, but this is Friday with Mike. This is the Friday with Mike look.
I
It's
like it.
2023 in America and Canada. I don't think anyone would judge.
It's
I
only
mean,
2022 here. We're a little behind.
Oh, you're
oh,
still there. Oh, you're
yeah.
still in 2020. Okay, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
It's a time difference thing, right?
Oh, God. Okay, before we start laughing hysterically, which always happens on this show, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about CUBroadcast?
Oh my gosh, CUBroadcast. Where shall I begin? No, it is the credit union industry's kind of an online video talk show, if you will. And we're talking to leaders in the industry. We're talking to game changers in the industry. We're talking to innovators, success stories, anything that has a kind of a positive educational angle toward the credit union toward the credit union industry that keeps it moving forward. So we're big proponents of being positive and optimistic, and we want to see this industry keep moving forward. So we're putting out these positive. Every now and then we'll have something that we'll create a little bit of conflict, but we'd like to keep the message positive. So yeah, so we've been talking to leaders in the industry, gosh, since 2010, believe it or not. So in our 13th year almost here, and almost probably 6,500, 7,000 interviews in. That number still astounds me. So, but yeah, so we're doing those, and then yeah, so yeah, and kind of our main shtick is that yeah, we do everything via video, just kind of like what you guys are doing here. So yeah, so that's what we've been doing for the past 13 years, is talking to really cool people, talking to really smart people, and spreading the word that way.
7,000.
I think so. Yeah, I think we're knocking on the door of 7,000. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And
That is
that's
wild.
old school. I mean, that's before people really did video.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
back in 2010, gosh, if we were lucky, maybe 50% of the video calls worked just because of the bandwidth back then. So it was definitely a crapshoot. If we were, say, hey, can we do a video interview? And man, we were really lucky if we got through 5 or 10 minutes without something going haywire. But ever since then, today we just kind of take the bandwidth for granted now with Zoom and everything. So and then I was using Skype, and I discovered this little app that worked with Skype. That would make the split screen format that we're also used to on Zoom and Teams and things like that now. So yeah, so it was all really new, and at the time nobody was doing video, and so I literally said, hey, let's give this a shot, let's see if it'll work. And then again, here we are 13 years later.
Incredible. We were
Yeah.
talking. We joined a few minutes before you joined us, and we're talking about the challenges and just the innate difficulties of having your company and your brand be about interviewing people. And I wanted to know how you decided to start on this journey and what really has fascinated you to interview people for a living.
Well, I have a degree in broadcast journalism from the fine University of San Diego State. Go Aztecs! And so, hey, I'm actually using my major. So go think, who would have
Who would
thought?
have
So
thought? Who would
I
have thought?
know
A
my parents are
journalism
so happy.
major.
I know. So, but so yeah, so I started out writing for newspapers and magazines here in San Diego, and really really enjoyed it. And my favorite part of the journalism process was always the interview part. I loved it. I mean, you do all the research beforehand, and you kind of get an idea of how the story is going to be, and kind of have this outline in your brain. But then you get to go interview the person. I mean, and back then, a lot of our interviews, way back in the day when I was just starting out, a lot of our interviews were in person. So you would sit down, go to somebody's office, and you'd sit down and get to meet them and see their surroundings, and then you dive into an interview. And I just found that whole process so enlightening, so much fun. Whether it was a serious interview or whether it was a fun interview, I just found it really satisfying and inspiring, and all those cool positive buzzwords. So long story short, that I mean, I always wanted to do something. I always wanted to have some sort of like video interview show, whether it was going to be like an audio version, and this is before podcasts really took off, or do something video if it was possible, because I just love the interview part of it so much, and I love bringing people's personalities out as well, capturing that personality. And that's the other thing that I like about video is that you get to see the person react and respond to the question, and you get to kind of know them. And then there's that kind of that automatic video bond that you have, if you will. So the video part, or the interview part of it, is my favorite part of the whole journalism process. So that's why, and I'm blessed and lucky and grateful enough to do this for a living. So yeah, I'm really really thankful that I get to do this for a living, and I get to talk to really cool, smart people, and get the best out of them and let them shine
Yeah,
on our
I
show.
love it.
Yep.
Speaking of kind of exactly that, every interviewer has their own style and their own kind of way of asking questions. How would you describe your style? What does your brand of interview look like in your view?
I call our interviews, or even actually our episodes, I call it infotainment. so, so we want to get the information out there, but you want to be somewhat entertaining at the same time. Because as we all know, financial services can be a little bit dry sometimes. But so I like to have a little bit of fun with it every now and then. Let's get some laughs. So like in the beginning of the interview, kind of a rule of thumb is just kind of break the ice and, talk about the weather or whatever, or something funny. And now that we get to do these on video, there's always something funny in the background of somebody's background, or something interesting or whatever. So yeah, I try to get that to kind of break the ice and get them relaxed, and to where the interview where the interview transforms from an interview to a conversation, and the person totally forgets that they're being interviewed, and they're just talking, and they're sharing their expertise. So that's been kind of my style, and bring a little bit of energy as well with it. So again, my philosophy is always to kind of revolve around the infotainment moniker that I developed, and it seems to be working okay so far. People seem to be pretty happy with it, and the more relaxed people are, as you guys well know, and the more relaxed people are, the more willing they are to share their expertise. And then again, it just turns into a really cool, compelling conversation, and that's what we aim for.
Yeah, I would argue that you you were being a little uh what's the word I'm thinking of here? You were underselling your success by saying I think it's kind of working. It's working
Yeah,
okay
I
so
think
far.
so. I mean, we're
Um,
still a work in progress. What's
yeah,
the saying that Malcolm Gladwell said? If you do something 10,000 times, you become an expert or something like that. Well, we're
Over
about
10,000 hours.
6,500, 7,000 interviews in, so we got a little bit of ways to go before we can say we got this wired. So, I mean,
yeah.
every interview is different. Everything. I mean, one of my most popular interviews each year, or my videos rather each year, is my blooper reel that I put out to the industry every holiday season. It's my gift to the industry with me screwing up. So all year long. So, and people really get a kick out of it. So there's still a lot to learn, but we don't take ourselves too seriously either. So we like to have a little bit of fun here. So, and there's still a lot more to learn.
I absolutely love that, and it brings me back to our blooper reel with that we posted after our season finale, and it's just me saying Shaun's name over and over. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And he's just staring off into the distance.
See, that stuff is
and
classic.
and I'm telling you, people loved it. And
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it brings me back to that concept of authenticity and how we've talked about this a lot in previous shows, is how people don't really want to see a perfectly polished person anymore.
Yep. You're right. You are right. Yeah, I think that for some reason, online videos or wherever you watch them, especially online, people really um, they gravitate toward the authenticity. They gravitate toward little mess ups here and there, and they really like it. And it makes you seem more real rather than something that you would see on TV or something that you would see on the big screen in a theater where everything is so nice and polished and everything. So online, for some reason, maybe it's some sort of YouTube effect or maybe some sort of TikTok effect or something like that where people are constantly screwing up. People appreciate that. They really enjoy it, and it makes you seem more human. And I think that that's where that bond comes in. So when people come on and go, oh, can we retake that? Can we do that again? And I usually go, yeah, that's fine. But most of the time it's like, hey, people really like that. They like it if you goof up a little bit. It's not a big deal because we do that. That's life. That's being human. We're not perfect and we mess up. And if you're always aiming for perfect, you're never going to get there. So yeah, so we appreciate the authenticity and sometimes the trip ups here and there.
So we talked a bit about some of your style and how you've shaped that. Who helped shape you? I mean, you talked about your degree, but who are some of your favorite interviewers? Who are kind of your landmarks that stand out that you've tried to sort of
Oh
build
wow,
yourself
that's a
after?
good question. Yeah, I'm a news junkie, and I'm really addicted to watching interviews, especially. So that's I really enjoy certain podcasts and things like that. But I like watching video interviews because I like to see how the people interact with each other. So I don't know, like Dan Patrick, who used to be ESPN Sports Center, he now has his own show, and so I watch him almost every day. So I really like his methodology, his style of interviewing, where you have a little bit of fun, but then you get to the point as well. You get to the information. I really enjoy him. But then I go back in the day, and I used to watch like David Letterman all the time. You know, way back at the Late Show with the David Letterman and Jay Leno and Johnny Carson. Those types of guys. Those really shaped my kind of my fun side, I guess, if you will. So yeah, so I watch a lot of that. Gosh, who else am I watching? As far as Bill Simmons on The Ringer, I think he's a pretty darn good interviewer. Oh my gosh, there's so many. And I read a lot of books while I was back in journalism school, way back in the 1800s. But Barbara Walters
in
actually,
Canadian time, back in
yeah,
Canadian
we're still
years.
back in 2022. Yeah. So, but Barbara Walters actually wrote a really good book on interviewing, and so I read that. And so, as we all know, she's a legend in that area. So, yeah, there's all sorts of great resources out there. There's another book called The Art of Interviewing, and I can't remember who wrote it. And
Larry
I just
Grobel.
there you go. And so I would read
Shaun
that
has
multiple
it.
times.
Check it out.
Yeah, mine's back there on my shelf too. I couldn't find it if you paid me to, but it's down there somewhere. So I watched it as well. I
Your
mean, watched it, read it. So
I
yeah,
need to get that.
yeah.
I can't find the darn
But
thing.
now I'm just mainly kind of I'm kind of like I'm obviously a very visual person, so I like to watch people how they interview. There's a bunch of good interviews, actually, a bunch of great interviewers in our industry, in the CU broad or in the credit union industry. So yeah, indeed, there it is,
There
sir.
it is.
So yeah,
Great
yeah.
quote.
So what
So yeah,
who's someone in the financial services industry that you admire that's doing what
Mark
you're doing?
Sebright. Mark Sebright's really good. He's obviously extremely knowledgeable in the fintech part of the industry, and I just saw him facilitate a credit union CEO panel at the PSCU member forum, and he was awesome. So real. I'm like, oh, I was just in awe of that guy. So yeah, I really enjoy watching him. Actually, Dean Young from PSCU is really good because normally you go to these conferences and they always have some sort of celebrity guest and they come out and they interview him or something like that. So Dean Young interviewed Drew Brees at last year's PSCU member forum, and he did a splendid job. It was so much fun, but at the same time, he got all the great information out. So yeah, but yeah, there's so many great interviewers out there. So yeah, it's an art, definitely. But and we're all still trying to get better.
For sure. What would you say are your top 3 recommendations when interviewing? And this could be interviewing a person in terms of a talk show. This could be interviewing in a workplace environment.
Yeah.
All the different components of interviewing, of a person talking to another person and asking them questions. That's so critical to our human nature.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I would tell people is to, and I think this is probably really basic, but listen. Listen to who you're interviewing and react to what they are saying because they appreciate that you're listening to them, and then they'll open up even more. And at the same time, there's probably some really cool avenues that you can go down to that you probably weren't originally planning. So my number one thing is to listen when you're interviewing and take a little nugget of what they just said and kind of go with it, if you will. So, and that's really, for me, it's really difficult to do, but I really make an extra effort to do it because there's some gems that you can just grab a hold of and go down. I mean, you don't want to go down too far down a rabbit hole, but but there's some really good avenues you can take if you're just listening to what they're saying. And again, the guest really appreciates that too, rather than just going from question to question to question to question. So, yeah, so that's my number one, is just to listen to what they're saying and then react to it. The other one is do your research. Oh my gosh, that sets yourself up for success so well. If you do your research ahead of time, have some questions already ready to go, have your formula of questions ready to go. And I'm not saying you have to stick to that script or stick to that formula, but at least for me, at least it gives me confidence knowing, okay, I'm prepared no matter where this interview goes. I got that. I have this roadmap, if you will. So yeah, that's my second one. So do your research, be prepared, listen. And then my last one, I guess, is kind of maybe an obtuse one, but be curious. Always be curious. And I know, again, that's been probably overstated in many areas of business and life and things like that. But my curiosity keeps me interested, and my curiosity forces me to listen, and my curiosity makes me do my research. So I know that the interview will hopefully go well. So yeah, so those are kind of my 3 things. So I know they're all kind of broad-ish, but those are some of the things that I try to keep a lookout for, and then I have a little bit of fun at the same time.
Heck yeah.
What's the most embarrassing
Sorry,
thing
I
that's
didn't
happened to
swear.
you?
I didn't swear. Sorry. Heck
Oh my
yeah.
God.
Am I allowed to
We
swear
can
on this?
edit. We cannot
Sean,
edit. Yes.
Just
This
Sean,
is not
Sean,
NPR. You're allowed to swear.
Sean's my boss. I have to ask for permission. May I swear on this podcast, please?
please,
Absolutely not.
Okay,
please.
well, so Sean, before you ask your question, let me ask Mike,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on swearing in shows and on podcasts?
Um, I don't mind it as long as it's not gratuitous. There better be a reason for it. So, I mean, if you're dropping F bombs just for the heck of it, I'm not a big fan of. But I think if it's warranted and it's used sparingly, then yeah, I'm fine. I mean, I mean, that happens pretty rarely on my show because I don't think anybody's going to be swearing on, a financial services interview show. I don't know why they would want to, but I don't know. Every now and then something comes out, but yeah, I mean, I'm not like, I don't know. I'm just, there's a lot of TV shows on right now that have a lot of swearing in it, obviously, a lot of F bombs and things like that dropping. And I'm like, was that really necessary there? I don't really think so. I mean, a lot of it, it's gratuitous and I think it's attention grabbing as well. But I think, yeah, if it's used properly, if there has to be a reason for it. And then you can move on from there. So yeah, and make it sparingly. You don't have to like overdo it. My gosh.
Yeah,
So,
I feel that.
yep, that's kind of my philosophy on it. But yeah, let's just try to keep it as clean as possible, though. There's ways around that.
If you have the right vocabulary, you really shouldn't have to. Although there's
There you
times
go.
where it comes out and it's authentic,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's authentic
Oh
to
yeah.
who someone is. So that's
Oh
that's
yeah.
fair
I
too.
hear you, Shaun. I'm right there with you.
Talk about what's the most embarrassing that's happened to you. Tell us about a time when something went absolutely sideways during a conversation.
Oh my gosh. Gosh, every day. Before we got on the recording, I was telling you about my sideways morning. My gosh.
What's one that stands out from an interview just
Oh my
completely
gosh.
gone
Well,
awry?
just watch my blooper reel and you'll see like 100 of them. Gosh, forgetting somebody's name is always fun, especially when you've interviewed them multiple times in the past. I call, yeah, it happened at the CUNA Technology Council show last year. I was talking to Eric. Oh gosh, now I can't remember his last name. No, it was Tim. And I called Tim, and his last name is, oh my gosh, now you're getting me. Now I'm going to get in trouble. But anyway, I called him by his brother's name, and I'm like, "What? No, I'm Tim. Eric's in the other room." I'm like, "So yeah, that happened." So that happens a lot, though. I just forget people's name, and that's just me being really lame. Another one was, oh gosh, this one happened a while ago. I was interviewing the NCOA chair, Debbie Matz. Debbie Matz was the NCOA chair at the time. This was many moons ago, and I used to have a camera set up on like a tripod, and I would stand up and I would do the interview that way. And as you can know, I talk with my hand sometimes. So I was saying something and my hand hit the camera and the camera went flying. And here I am talking to the NCUA chair. Oh my gosh, I was nervous enough as it was. And I hit the camera and it goes flying across the room onto the floor. And I run over there. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, what a time to swear, right, Shaun? But I didn't. I bit my tongue. So I grabbed the camera and put it back up. And I see Debbie Matz in stitches. She was laughing hysterically. And she goes, are you okay?
So
Like,
the whole thing was
yeah,
recorded, like it
it was all
recorded it
recorded. Yeah.
falling and
Oh yeah, the whole thing was on. Yeah, the whole thing was recorded. Yeah, I need to go back and find that. Yeah, that was pretty classic. So yeah, it's just stuff like that happens, and I'll forget to turn on the mic or something. I'll do an entire interview and I'll forget to turn on the mic, or I'll forget what city I'm in when I'm doing, like when I'm going from conference to conference. So yeah, there's a multitude of them. So yeah, just again, go watch my blooper reels and you'll see a whole bunch of them, and you'll get a kick out of it. Yeah,
oh
It's
my
so
funny. The
lots of
goodness.
story
embarrassment.
reminded me. The story reminded me. And I mean, we don't get political, but in the '92 presidential campaign, where the Clintons ran 60 Minutes, do you remember
Yeah.
this? And the light fell, and it was crashing onto them.
Oh
You,
no.
you must have seen the video, whether you saw it in school or, yeah. There was a boom light that was over them. They were on a couch, and the light was crashing in, and she like ducked to cover him,
Oh my gosh.
and it was. I mean, could have been catastrophic. It's completely unscripted, but apparently, like it really went a long way to humanize them, and probably helped him win at that point.
Exactly.
No.
And that's the other side of it, Shaun. Great point there, because that's the other side. When you do something embarrassing, that makes you human. That makes you authentic, and people really appreciate that. Again, that goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, and how when you mess up a little bit, it's not that big a deal. People actually, it's okay because we're like that in real life. So yeah, good point.
I love it. So what this is the last question I'll ask you. And then if you have time, we'll ask a surprise question because I'm a
Sure.
big
Oh my
fan of
gosh.
surprise questions. Uh, what has been the biggest challenge you faced with in the past 13 years with this business?
The biggest challenge is to probably to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. It can get stale after if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm trying to iterate and make it better and make it more appealing and make it more attractive, more engaging. Like now we're doing a lot more live stuff now where we're broadcasting simultaneously on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, our livecast page. So I really find those a lot of fun because whenever you do something live, it's like walking a tightrope. You never know what's going to happen. So I love that feeling of just being totally on the edge and not knowing what's going to happen. That's so much. That's for me. That's a lot of fun. For other people, maybe not so much. But yeah, I love that. So yeah, I think just keeping it fresh, getting some new faces on as well. I don't want to say that's a challenge, but yeah, just I think yeah, the biggest challenge is to keep it fresh, is to keep it interesting, keep it engaging, yeah, and just yeah, and keep building it. So yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge right now. I'm sure there's other challenges that I'm not thinking about, but I mean, anything administrative is challenging to me. So all that mundane administrative stuff that we have to do our day to day. So yeah, that's challenging to me. But for the show, I'm my whole thing is yeah, just how do we keep this thing fresh? How do we keep it fun and interesting and engaging?
Yeah. I mean, Shaun, I would argue that that's the case for really anything with content marketing and having a personal brand and having a company brand is how do you keep it consistent with your brand,
Yeah,
but keep it engaging with it, but stay within your guardrails of what your audience expects. It's a
completely.
really, really fine line to walk,
Yep.
especially when you're producing. I mean, the quick math, you've done 6,500 episodes over 13 years. I can't multiply 13 times 365. So it's something
You and me
it's
both, Alicia. I wasn't very good at math. That's why I do words.
yeah. All right. Shaun, do you have any other questions for him or do you want me to ask my surprise question? Oh, I can't hear you anymore.
Oh
Oh,
no.
no, sorry. I was muted. That goes on the blooper reel. It's about 500 a year, by the way. So that's a heck of a lot of interviews. You're doing a couple of days.
Well, it's yeah, we're doing yeah, we try to at least post two a day, maybe three. And then if I do like our live conference, our live conference coverage, we'll do lots. I mean, we'll do way more than I mean, like at GAC this past year, we did between 60 and 70 interviews in 3.5 days.
Wow.
So I'm like, what am I doing to myself?
You're
But it's
just
so
a
much fun.
machine.
It is so much fun. Once you get into the role, I mean, rhythm of it, it is a total blast. You're exhausted afterwards, but man, in the moment, it is so much fun.
It's my
So much
favorite
fun.
thing to do. No, I'm good. Go for your surprise question. I'll be
Okay.
surprised too.
Surprise question.
All right, here we go.
What is an unpopular opinion you have?
Oh no, an unpopular opinion? Oh gosh. Alicia, man, an unpopular opinion I have. I don't know. In my house, I like Brussels sprouts and nobody else does. How about that? I don't
Roasted, they are delicious, and I will
I love
stand by
Brussels
that.
sprouts ever since I was a wee little lad. I love Brussels sprouts. Yeah. And my
I love them
family was
too.
just like, "Are you insane? What is wrong with you, child?" So yeah, but gosh, what an unpopular opinion.
That's a
I have
very PC unpopular opinion. That's like if Mike Lawson was
very,
running for
isn't it?
president and they're like, "What's an
Isn't it?
unpopular opinion?" You'd be like, "I don't know. I love Brussels sprouts."
Um, gosh, oh my god, I think you've stumped me, Alicia.
Oh my gosh,
I've
Shaun
never
and I have
ever,
so many.
I've never ever thought about that before.
I'm just unpopular. It's not even my opinions.
um,
You
I
could
don't
think
know. Is
about
it
it. Get back with
popular to
us.
wear white after Labor Day? Is there some sort of rule there? I wear white all the time, although I'm wearing black today. But I don't know. Gosh, ay ay ay. I don't wear socks too often, and people are not really keen on that. So,
You're really grasping. This is really grasping at
oh my
straws.
gosh,
Now
Alicia,
I feel weird because I have so many.
I've honestly never thought about that. But I mean, probably subliminally or subconsciously. I don't know.
We could think about it, and then we can have a what is that? An epilogue?
Yeah,
afterwards,
yeah, an
and then
addendum.
an addendum to this, yes, of
Okay,
what Mike Lawson's unpopular opinion
okay,
is.
I can do that.
It
Wow,
really
I'll
keeping
go for a run and
keep
think about it, and like something will happen. Something will come up. Something
you
will
can ask
percolate to the
friends
top of my little tiny brain. Yeah.
you can ask friends and family too, I'm sure they'd be happy to.
Oh yes, yes. The immediate family in this house will tell me. They'll give me an earful for sure, and it
Oh
won't
my
have anything to do
goodness.
with Brussels sprouts.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, obviously, your time is exceedingly valuable, and we are
Really good.
so stoked to have you on the show. You want to do a quick plug of where people can find you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just go to www dot, if they still say www. Is that still chic to say in 2023? Or just go to CUBroadcast.com. How about that? And you'll find all our videos there, and you don't have to watch all 6,000 of them. You can watch just the latest ones if you like. Yeah, so CUBroadcast.com. If you want to email me, Mike at CUBroadcast.com. And yeah, or you can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel as well. We're gonna start doing some more. See, this is the thing about keeping it fresh, Alicia, is like I want to do some more stuff on YouTube. I want to do some more like personal type videos, that type of stuff. So kind of maybe getting to know me and maybe some of my unpopular opinions. Maybe I'll save some of those
While
on
eating Brussels sprouts, I assume.
while eating Brussels sprouts and not wearing socks. Yeah. So yeah. So we're gonna try to do more of
What a
that.
California thing! What a California
Exactly.
thing!
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Oh my god. Oh my
Have a good
gosh.
one. I love the idea of doing something that much. I mean, 7,000 times that you can really understand the nuances of human behavior and pick up when someone's uncomfortable. I mean, that alone is an incredible skill to have across the board, to recognize when someone's uncomfortable and how to turn that into a feeling comfortable.
There are a lot of reporters who don't hit 7,000 interviews in their careers. So the fact that he's done that many and been that determined to stick with it is absolutely, it is an obstacle course, especially if somebody is shy or reticent or doesn't want to talk. So the fact that he's done that many and is that determined, bravo.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of your favorite interviewers or interview series?
So there's a few that I like, and it's funny because it really kind of runs the gamut. I mean, and I am a former journo. Interviewing was the best part of what I had done. I loved it. I love it still. I love that I'm able to do it now in my work. I'm bringing it almost as a service to my clients, and I'm starting to sort of package it out because it's probably what I do best, to be totally honest. Um, I love listening to Mark Maron, who does almost no research and has had his podcast forever. But he is notoriously ill prepared for a lot of his conversations. I love. I was a huge fan of Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, where it was really funny, and I miss him terribly. But Gilbert was a riot because Gilbert could barely pronounce the guest's name, did no research, and yet his partner, who I'm friendly with, a guy named Frank Santopadre, was meticulous and did ridiculous research and had, cards out the wazoo. I love the folks with the cards. I loved watching James Lipton do Inside the Actors Studio. I loved, there is a guy up here who used to do film and TV interviews uh, years ago, the 70s and 80s, called Brian Linehan. They used to parody him on SCTV, and he was absolutely brilliant. He talked to every celebrity you could think of, from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and was so meticulously prepared. He used to drop jaws because people couldn't believe what he was coming up with. So there is a lot to be said for that, having the preparation, having the homework done. As someone who does it, there's a real thrill to asking someone a question they're not used to or they're not expecting, and we saw it with him just now. Where when someone says that's a great question, usually that's them kind of taking a pause to collect their thoughts. They're not don't always mean it's a great question, but there is a real thrill in asking somebody something they weren't expecting and that they didn't see coming, or impressing them with the fact that you've done your homework, because people who are interviewed regularly are just so used to the same formulaic, I don't really care, I'm doing this for work kind of questions. So if you can get past that and beat down those defenses, it's real magic.
I envy you, Shaun. I envy your ability to understand human behavior in this capacity, and I think we will continue to be on an epic quest to, as we age, to always get better at communicating with people and recognizing these little nuances that make us all so unique.
The best advice, and I want to ask you about your favorite interviewers in a second. The best interview advice that I've ever heard was from a famous reporter up here who was kind of the Canadian Barbara Walters, and I think they knew each other. A woman named Barbara From, and her line was, "Ask a short question and get out of the way."
I love that.
Ask a short question and get out of. People hate silence, so they will fill in those gaps.
Yep.
Ask a short question, get out of the way.
Yeah, I love that.
Who are your
One
favorites?
one of my favorite is Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns. Have you seen it? Oh, is
I
it
funny enough, I think I've seen little bits. I like him, but I really haven't watched the show.
it is the people he has on there. I mean, he had Barack Obama on there. It's some of the biggest names in the world, and he just grills them. It's so hilarious. I mean, it's scripted, but it's just so funny. The joy I get out of seeing someone in such a totally different environment and how they respond to these silly questions. And I also, as a visual person, I also really love the environment around it. He just has these two like giant ferns that he
It's
literally
literally
sits
between
in
two
between.
ferns.
And that's the brand. It's like the brand is it's a little most literal interpretation and is really funny. Probably the only interview I watch on a regular basis is Graham Norton, and he'll have the on the BBC. He'll have what I
Oh,
love
he's
about
so
it is
good.
he has a variety of people, and they're all sitting there together, and it is just really funny how he's taken himself interviewing, but then sometimes the guests ask questions too, and so it kind of becomes this little mini universe that's unique to every single episode.
They're having a conversation, and they're having a legitimate conversation. He manages to kind of calm people down to the point where it's like something like, it's funny that he's such a big fan, Mike, of the Tonight Show, because it's so, for the most part, scripted. And it really was so, especially like Leno was famous for it in Car Cities. It's really so rehearsed, versus something like a Graham Norton that is just so genuinely spontaneous, and lets
Yeah,
people let their guard down.
absolutely. I'm a big fan of Graham Norton. I just watched his. He's probably 5 years old now. He did a exclusive interview with Elton John, I think in 2017, and he's sitting in Elton John's home in the south of France, and they're just talking candidly, and it's a really great interview. One of the best celebrity interviews I've ever seen.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah,
That's the other English one that was really famous was Michael Parkinson. I did a lot of them in the '70s, but Parkinson used to do these amazing interviews with absolute legends, and was able to kind of calm them down. He's got really the only Peter Sellers interview with Peter Sellers actually being Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers could never be himself. He was a character, whether he was Clouseau or whoever he was playing, and he came out as a character. But then they started talking about drumming, and he dropped the act, and it's on video of him actually being himself, and it's wild.
incredible. We could talk all day about this.
I could talk for hours. I could have talked to Mike all day. I love this stuff.
Well, our poor listeners, we have to let them go at some point.
I guess. I guess. Thanks for sticking around, though, listeners and viewers. We're happy you're here.
Yeah, season 2.
Woo! Wonderful. Where can they find us, Alicia?
They can find us at Branding and the Beast. We are on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Google, Apple, all of your podcast of choice. you'll find
Apple's
us.
a little iffy. I don't know if
Oh,
we're quite up on Apple. It
okay.
seems
Well, I
kind of
retract
niche.
that. I retract
But
that.
we're on Spotify and Google and Amazon Music, I believe, and that's all
Yep.
pretty
Yep.
decent. We're also going to build out our website, brandonofthebeast.com, so that will be up and running this season for your enjoyment.
Yep. And you can find me, Alicia, at 38th and Kip Studio. I'm all over the web. Just search 38th and Kip, KIP. You'll find me.
And you can find me, Shaun Bernstein, at The Right Stuff Agency, WRITE. The Right Stuff Agency is my website, or just search Instagram, Facebook, send a carrier pigeon. I'll get it eventually. I'm around.
Right on. Thanks for listening, guys, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.